Good afternoon, traders and investors. It's Will back here with another one. Hope you guys are doing well today. So today started off pretty red, and then once again, the bulls showed up in the afternoon and reversed a lot of the damage that was done early morning. So we got a big week today, this week, guys. Actually, not that big of a week yet, but on Wednesday, keep in mind, we do have CPI at 8:30 Eastern AM in the morning here. So it's going to be a very big day on Wednesday. And then we jump into earnings season right away. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you right away, guys. Earnings this week, very, very big week. I think there will be some nice opportunities. On, let's say, Thursday, for example, we got Delta and Pepsi, some of our major names here, coming out, starting off the earnings with a bang here. Pepsi for your consumer retail segment, right? And then you have some Delta Airlines for your travel segment. Going to be some good insights on the consumer on both of those fronts. Now, on Friday, we started off with the bank earnings and UNH, one of our largest healthcare players. So as you can see, JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, State Street for one of your more regional players right here, right? So very, very, very decently packed the latter end of the week, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, going to be some big movement. So I don't really expect tomorrow to be that big of a day, especially not before CPI. But with that being said, let's jump into the charts right away, guys, and see what are we dealing with. Well, today we were dealing with, especially with after Friday's move, right? We were dealing with a potential loss of the 12 EMA here. Really didn't like Friday's candle and how we closed. It really opened up the door for a move below the 12 EMA, but you can see bulls have recaptured that area. So we are still in our pattern of looking for the daily higher low, right? Still looking for that daily higher low. At this point, you really don't want to break 437.27. Bulls really want to hold that in hopes of making a further push to the all-time high. So keep an eye on this 12 EMA. Very, very crucial in my opinion. If we lose it in a significant fashion, we start to take away too much of this recent move, set yourself up for a daily downtrend. And there's a couple things on big tech that I was noticing today that I didn't really like in terms of these EMAs. So keep an eye out on that for SPY. If you want to look at the heat map here, you will see, let me just refresh this real quick. It was a very decent day for everything except for our large tech names, right? Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Google. The only one green was Meta, but Meta was getting heavily hit in the morning as well and turned it around. So NVIDIA too, right? So all the rest of the market pretty much was green except for your utility sector all the way down here. But big tech, once again, kind of cooling off. And this is actually, more of a blessing than it is a curse, in my opinion. If big tech can cool off like this and the rest of the market can make up for it, I think that shows the signs of the healthy market that we kept talking about, right, guys? You love to see this, right? So on a one-day relative here, you can see that major sectors here all across the board were green, except for utilities and communication services. Communication services obviously led by Google to the downside, right? And a few of your telecom providers down here, but mostly Google responsible for this large move down. Now, jumping into QQQ, same principle, right? Looking for the daily higher low. Still have not got it. Let's throw the fib on it here. Just want to show this to you guys, right? So the bears have now taken back almost the 618, right? We're getting really close this morning to the 618. And the 618 is pretty much your line in the sand level for the bulls being able to do this. Meaning if they don't lose the 618 level, they can easily just make a lower high and set new. If they lose it and cut too deep, best case scenario for bulls is a further tightening range and then breakout. Worst case scenario is obviously the daily downtrend roll over. So still holding on to this 12 EMA. Keep an eye on it though, guys. Really keep an eye on it because tomorrow and the rest of the week, especially with CPI, is going to be quite crucial. Now, numbers for CPI this month should be fairly good in anticipation, right? June is supposed to be some really good data overall. Not only that, but on a year-over-year comp basis, we are going to get a pretty big difference there. So it should be a good number. The number I'm worried about is July. So we'll get that in August, but June should be good in my opinion. Just keep an eye on this 12 EMA. We're so close to it, guys, right? But the bulls are still holding on, really taking away the possibility of an extended weekly pullback here. So bulls doing an absolutely great job by having a broad market support, not just big tech rallying. Now we're going to look at financials, right? Financials still stuck in our resistance zone, guys. You know that this is the zone for me. Until we get a break of pretty much this 3,400 area, we cannot say we're out of the woods yet, right? So bulls did a great job of setting the daily higher low last week. Now it remains to be seen, can they use this momentum to push, or are we going to get stuck in a higher range here before breaking out? Either or situation, the bulls do have a pretty good setup here. We are above the moving averages, still holding above this green line here, which represents your 200-day moving average. So still looking good, and on a weekly basis as well. Keep in mind, this is still the potential here for your weekly uptrend. So financials, obviously, Friday is going to be the biggest day, as we have a lot of the major bank players reporting that day. So this week, in my opinion, is make or break for XLF of this range here. Keep in mind, if we do break this, there's no reason that we can't continue to push higher into this top area supply zone here. So I am looking forward to it. I've been building decent amount of bank positions down in this range here, especially on my Canadian bank ETF, which you guys know I mentioned on the channel, is HCAL. Beautiful, beautiful dividend yield here, right? And it's just the overall favorite one in the entire industry that I like in terms of Canadian banks, if you guys are interested in that. Now, XLV, still trapped in our extended range here, right? So tightening range, what bulls need to do, need to hold this 126 level, right? We are currently in the process right here of a weekly pullback. So bulls are trying to set the weekly higher lows. Really need to step in here on the daily chart. It was getting, you know, especially with Friday, right? Breaking this whole area of support here, it was getting kind of dicey. So at this point in time, guys, the bulls want to avoid the daily downtrend. So they're going to really have to make a nice little push, probably back up into the moving average area, set a good level right here, and then we want to see the kickback and push over, right? So that is the best case scenario for the bulls. But if they do keep pushing to the downside on the daily, keep in mind, we're just looking for this potential tightening range to get even tighter. We're going to have healthcare reporting. This week we have UNH. Next week we have a few more players. That could also be the make and break situation, guys, for this area right here, our 126, or are we going to push higher into the 135s and get this range broken? This at this point, guys, is now a 2-year range. Really, really long time. Usually when you have things consolidate for such a long time, they tend to snap pretty hard. In my opinion, it does have a bullish directional bias. We've been holding on the monthly long-term moving averages very, very well. Now, talking about the Russell here. Russell, the growth names were absolutely crazy today, despite your negative action on big tech. If I go to my growth section here, you'll notice that most of the highest percentage gains on the day today, look, all pretty much the smaller names, right? DraftKings, Affirm, Neo, EXPI, which is a real estate, but they're kind of on an up-and-coming streak here. Lucid, Palantir, right? Enphase, even though Enphase does have a relatively large market cap, right? 24 billion. I still consider them to be a burgeoning company, right? A high growth company. And obviously you have now some of the cybersecurity players, Net and CrowdStrike, starting to perform really, really well as well. So as you can see, most of the gains were made by relatively smaller cap stocks here, okay? So keeping that in mind, guys, I mean, they're not obviously small cap these, they're pretty much mid cap, but they're on the smaller end of the spectrum when it comes to growth stocks. So at that point in time, I'm kind of flipping between the screens here. So what I wanted to say, guys, is IWM coming up to our resistance area here. We are obviously in a tightening range. It needs to break absolutely this resistance area, guys, if we want to see some further momentum. This resistance is obviously coming in from our supply zone here. So big level to break to the upside. What are the bulls going for? It looks better on the weekly, right? We are really going for this weekly second leg higher, right? Need to see that manifest. I think that this week, especially with this momentum that we did get today, we could have a break of this range, but they're getting really, really good momentum. Rivian was one of my favorite plays. I'm so happy, guys, that I was able to actually acquire shares down here under 15 bucks. I did sell off a little last week. I was riding the puts, as you guys know, the short puts in this area, but haven't really written any since. I didn't have a large position of Rivian Rivian, only 500 shares, most of which I actually cut last week when we broke around $23 here on Friday. I cut most of the remaining shares. I had cut some down here in the 19 area, and now I only have about 100 shares left, guys. Very, very tiny position for me, but I'm willing to ride out the rest of those 100 shares. We are getting very, very overbought on the daily, keep in mind, right? So if you guys are in that name that's been performing very, very well, just keep that in mind, right? Now, let's get into the Dow Jones lastly before jumping into our big tech names here. So the Dow Jones names did fairly well today, right? As the rest of the market, the whole rest of the market, right? A lot of our value names were in the good graces today. So what are we still trying to do, guys? We're still trying to break out of this extended inverse head and shoulders pattern that I've been talking about for weeks now. On the weekly, we're still holding our 12 EMA, right? But we're really struggling, right? That double top situation that we had up here, really not the best situations you want to see. However, the bulls are able to really kind of like set themselves up here in a potential tightening range to make another upswing higher. Obviously, line in the sand level 33.6, guys. If we lose 33.6 over the course of this week due to CPI or the initial earnings that are released, right? What's going to happen is we're going to set ourselves up for a move down lower, obviously, but it's also going to kind of ruin our pattern and send us to lower targets here. So you really want to see what value stocks have done today and what they've done performed well over the past couple weeks. You want to see them get that final push and break above to really set a longer term pattern in motion of us starting to really get some broad market recovery, right? And Pepsi is going to be crucial in this. Pepsi is going to be really, really, really crucial in that. Now, moving on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin holding on for dear life, right? Still cannot break this area of support. This is very, very, very crucial. We're just in a tightening range, not too much anything interesting in this range whatsoever, guys. You already know that it's either a break of 31.5 or this zone down here. That's just the nature of a range. Can't really tell where it's going to break, but I do still have a bullish lean because we are just in a weekly bull flag, right? This is a weekly bull flag. It looks really good that they're consolidating at the higher end of this entire move up, right? So remains to be seen. Can the bulls actually get it done? They have all the longer term charts in their favor, right? Monthly uptrend is all but confirmed at this point. We are also in a weekly, pretty much gonna be confirmed uptrend if they can make this push higher, but it's looking really, really good, right? So they have the longer term time frames working for them. Now it's just up to the daily bulls to really stop the bears on their pushes, right? And start grinding higher and eventually crack 31.5. When we crack 31.5, guys, I really think that we can actually fly up to our next level, which is the first stop is around 32.5 here, and then we're all the way up to around 37, right? So can get some really good momentum on crypto, but Bitcoin has to lead absolutely. Now, getting into the stocks that I most wanted to talk about, right? So Apple, this is going to be very, very, very crucial for Apple, guys, okay? Apple losing the 12 EMA, right? As of this morning, it was down really bad off the 12 EMA. Now, it has done this in a few past scenarios, and the bulls were able to recover. The one bad thing, when you do lose the 12 EMA in such a fashion, right, you do set up the potential for your daily downtrend. At this point, what are we trying to do, guys? We're really trying to set up a daily higher low, but the bears have done a good job here, can't take it away from them, of really getting a lot of this move back. So guys, the crucial area, anything above 183 at this point will be your daily higher low, but the bears are doing a good job, right? If they do keep continuing to the downside, we're going to eventually get a retest potentially on the weekly of this 12 EMA if they continue the push here. What bulls need to do, obviously, is we need to get over 193 again. So Apple, not with the greatest day. Keep an eye on some of your lower time frames here, right? Lower time frames also losing the moving averages. Potentially just a little cool off for big tech today as they were kind of disconnected, right, from the rest of the market. However, it's noticeable to me whenever this happens on names like Apple and Microsoft and like big tech, like it happened today, right? So you never really want to see that. I need a few more days of information on Apple to see what we're going to do. We barely lost the 12 EMA, but bulls, I mean, have their work cut out for them. They have to play some good defense at this point. My target area for Apple, if we do come down to be writing puts, is between 175 and pretty much the 170 zone. Amazon also, you'll see a pattern here. loss of the 12 EMA. Amazon has not lost the 12 EMA since we started this entire move to the upside, right? This whole second leg of the move off the bottoms here, right? We haven't lost it since pretty much May. So it's been around 2 months at this point that we really haven't lost the 12 EMA in a significant fashion. Today was definitely notable for me. I have this line here because that was my line in the sand level for Amazon, 127.30. We actually lost it and are now testing it as resistance. It is so close, guys. Look at how close this is, right? But now, unfortunately, this level is resistance when you go down to the lower time frames. So Amazon, two possible scenarios. Tomorrow, we either reject from it and really consolidate the fact that we're in for more of a daily pullback and setting up for a potential daily downtrend, right, into a larger weekly pullback, which would be needed. It would look completely natural on the weekly chart, right, guys? I'm sure you can agree with me. Just on the daily, you know, it kind of looks a bit worse than it actually is once you zoom out. So just keep that in mind. My target area for Amazon, it does start around 115 all the way down to 114 for writing puts. So at that point, right, I would be writing heavy. These green areas, keep in mind, they are my heavy zones. I do have an option that I did open on Amazon that I might show a bit later in the video here, the positions that I opened today, but this is definitely notable to me, guys, right? You can almost argue that the daily uptrend is lost already. We did lose this area and we are setting up kind of lower highs, right, into lower lows, right? Not yet fully convinced. There's not enough information, not enough daily candles, in my opinion, to make that call yet, but it definitely is notable to me, guys. Keep an eye on this area right here, right? So your loss of your 12 EMA is real. Just let's look what it does tomorrow. We can either get back up above it and act as if nothing happened, or if we break down below it, guys, then you really have to wonder, is further weekly consolidation due on major big tech name players? Google, look, loss of the 12 EMA on the weekly. On the daily, we actually lost it last week, right? So Google was kind of trapped in this whole support area here. Keep in mind, this was support from a long time ago. Bears did a really good job, however, of smashing through, retesting, and making a further push to the downside, right? So on the weekly, yes, we are still in an extended, at this point, weekly bull flag, right? The bulls still have decent amount of space, but the bears just keep cutting into it, right? If we throw the fib on it, the bears have now taken almost back 50% of this entire move up. Still relatively healthy, right? Nothing to panic about just yet. But it's noticeable to me that for the first time in a long time, even since April, we've lost the weekly 12 EMA at this point. I know the week is not finished, of course, but at this point, we are looking pretty red on Google, right? The level for me is this previous last line in the sand level, 117 that I was talking about. We closed below it now at this point, right? So there is a small gap to be filled down here on Google. Are we potentially going for that? It is very possible. At this point, it's not that far away. Keep in mind my area for Google. I mean, I don't really mind this, guys. As you can see, we're coming closer to my green areas where I really don't mind writing puts at. I would love to be acquiring more of these stocks at these green levels and going heavier in options. It's just in the last couple weeks, I've not been going heavy because we're fairly extended on QQQ, right? We've always been fairly extended on QQQ, on SPY as well. It's been a very large move, and on our major tech names that tend to be more safe plays, right? So just be patient in these types of markets. Let these stocks come to you. And that's exactly what I'm doing on a lot of these big names, right? So Google, unfortunately, with the daily downtrend at this point, so bulls eventually, if they want to reverse it, are going to have to reverse the entire pattern. And that is not something that you can do in the snap of your fingers, right? It does take a few days or a week and a half, 2 weeks to potentially reverse into a daily uptrend. So at this point, the bears control the daily, but the bulls control the larger time frames here, right? So you have to count on those longer time frame bulls. And look, even on the monthly charts, on these guys, right? You can see that we may be due for a potential pullback on some of these names that have run quite a bit. It would look pretty fair on the monthlies if we would get a monthly reversal here into our longer term timeframes, right? So just keep that in mind, guys. There's nothing to say that this market can't keep going up in certain sectors, but in terms of big tech may be due for a cool off, and tech as a whole, right? Could value names start replacing big tech like it did back in October, if inflation starts rearing its head in the July report, which will be in August, that's what I'm looking out for, right? I'm looking out for potentially this month and maybe August for tech and especially big tech to take a breather while maybe value and smaller growth stocks potentially take over as your lead bulls. It would make a lot of sense because they have pretty much been kept muted while big tech has been responsible for the first 6 months of this entire move. Microsoft, loss of the 12 EMA, right? It has happened in the past. But bulls within the next few days have always been able to recover. That's my point on all these names, guys. The next few days are crucial. Are we going to set up the daily downtrend into further weekly consolidation, or are the bulls going to be able to just snap back as they've been able to previously do in the past few months? Only time will tell. The only nervous signal that's giving me on this chart is potentially a head and shoulders pattern on Microsoft. Never like to see that, especially on one of our bigger names, right? The area for me is not down here. I have to move it up. The area for me on Microsoft, I like anywhere between 320 and 300 is pretty much my target area for Microsoft in terms of a slight bounce zone for your weekly time frame. So on the daily, what's going to need to happen? The bulls either need to snap back, or if they start losing this area that we just tested right here, right, you really open up that possibility further for your daily downtrend. So loss of the 12 EMA is step number 1 for the bears. Step number 2 is setting up a lower high compared to your previous high here, and then a flush of your more recent low. That would be daily downtrend confirmed, and that would all but certainly send us for further weekly consolidation. Keep in mind the 12 EMA is fairly close here, and we do have some pretty big support around the 320 area, which we're around 328 today, guys. So 320 is stop number 1, and then you're all the way down to around 307, 308, excuse me, right? Very, very crucial on Microsoft next few days coming up here. Tesla doing a fairly good job here of holding on to gains. As you can see, we pretty much all but closed this little gap that was existing here. That's been there for about a week at this point, right? So that was always the case and point for the bears, was to close this gap. In closing this gap, what we were looking for, daily higher lows. So still hunting for daily higher lows. Tesla is one of our healthier charts in terms of big tech, right? So very, very healthy chart, healthy pullback as of now, rejecting from the 12 EMA. Very, very good job by the bulls. If we do, over the next few days, start pushing higher, well, then your levels are obviously our 52-week highs right into our big area of resistance, guys. And you know this, it's between 290 and about 310, right? So this is a very crucial area that came in the past all the way back here, right? So keep that area in mind. If we do crack 52-week highs, don't think that it could just make another massive leg higher. It could, but we're coming up on a resistance zone very, very, very soon. So me, in terms of my short puts, where do I like the short puts? I like them in the 250 range, right? 250 range at minimum at this point. And if we do continue to push lower, this is my real sweet spot for Tesla. If this can pull back even more and I can get some decent premium in this zone, I'm letting you know right away, guys, I will be going pretty heavy. If we get an extended pullback into the 250 area right here and it opens up the door for some potential 230s or whatnot, I will be going fairly heavy on them. I don't think Tesla, even if we do get down there, will stay down there for an extended period of time. Very, very, very healthy. And keep in mind, we are coming up into Q2 earnings for Tesla, which should be some pretty good numbers, especially after the deliveries that we did see, right? So Tesla with earnings next week pretty much, right? So not that far away at all. They're only next Wednesday, so remains to be seen, guys. Can the bulls play some decent defense until then? I really think that they can. So I do have a position on Tesla for this week, fairly close, 257, only one contract. That's the difference, right? Not going very heavy at all. One contract just for some premium, and that's pretty much it, right? So keep an eye. Tesla bulls doing a great job of playing defense. Now, NVIDIA. Want to look at some semiconductors here, right? So NVIDIA this morning was at a loss of a risk of losing the 12 EMA, right? But as you can see, guys, we are currently trapped between this area here. The flush zone 404, cannot lose 404. If you lose 404, you really open up the potential here for further weekly consolidation. The chart would not look good at that point, guys. It would potentially indicate monthly consolidation even at that point. But first things first, have to lose the 12 EMA. If you are a bear, you want to see them lose this 12 EMA. They have not been able to do it, even on a day like today where big tech was really, really red. NVIDIA was having a hard time flushing. It's been a long time we've seen a really negative 5-6% day on NVIDIA off some bad news or some big consolidation, right? Bulls doing a great job of playing defense, but we're in such a tight range, right? This is the daily chart, right? We are in a daily uptrend at this point, but it's looking really, really, really weak. So either a break of 404 for further weekly consolidation or a break of 440 for the continuation here of your weekly uptrend, right? That is what needs to happen. But for now, looking fairly weak on NVIDIA over the last 2.5 weeks at this point. I cannot really make any plays on this stock. It is too rich for me at this point. If you are an NVIDIA shareholder, congratulations for holding on. But really, guys, you would not like my levels for writing short puts if I told you they are significantly lower than this. Let me just say that. Palantir with a huge recovery day today. What were we looking for last week? This to be the daily higher low and daily uptrend reconfirmed. That's exactly what the bulls did. So now once again, we are eyeing the 52-week highs at this point, which will be 17.16 area, right? $17. This whole area of resistance here, you are now targeting. Daily uptrend is confirmed. Amazing job by the bulls defending this 12 EMA right here. And Palantir flying with the growth names today, right? So I told you guys that this was my area. When it came down into this area, we were writing some short puts in this area. Obviously did not get assigned, so we're able to capture that decent premium. And I'm always thankful, guys, when the analysis pays off, right? Like when you set yourself up for key areas and you execute on them and they play out, there's really no better feeling. That's why it's always important to be patient and let the stock come to you. It really gives you confidence as a trader, right? You're not chasing things, you're waiting things to come to you, right? So at this point, obviously the weekly higher low is set and we are looking for 52-week highs with that momentum to the upside. PayPal, guys, looking good. The bulls actually saved it, stepped in big, right? So keep in mind, Thursday was a very negative day. I was getting, potentially contemplating that the bulls were going to lose this and start setting potentially a further weekly pullback, right? But the bulls did a great job of defending this 65.80-ish, 65.75. That was the line in the sand level for me. We did a great job, and now you see we've actually pushed even higher today than our previous resistance zone. So very, very good bull breakout to the upside here. This is what I wanted to see to potentially start filling in the gap area. So if PayPal does have a next day or two of upside here, we are going to stop filling the gap, or we're going to start filling that gap area back into our 70 zone. We have not been in the 70 zone, guys, since May, right? So pretty much 2 months that we've been trapped down here in the 60s. So I'm really looking forward to see how much damage the PayPal bulls can do against this gap here. We did a great job here on the weekly of making a weekly bull flag and now pushing and making a higher high. So that is the pattern that you want to see. We've now all but reversed. If we can close the week like this above this previous resistance zone that I was talking about, then we will officially be in a new weekly uptrend, first weekly uptrend in a long time, suffice it to say, right? In a very long time. So this could be some good fuel for PayPal. I do believe that PayPal is still one of our most beaten down stocks, right? So I really think that this stock does represent still one of our best opportunities for some upside, still 77% off of all-time highs. Personally, I'm targeting for most of my shares for a first exit $90 level and then 100. I would not be surprised, guys, if we do get some further broad market participation and some decent earnings from financials and whatnot, that PayPal can actually start recapturing the 70s, the 80s, and then make a big move here up into the 90-100 zone where it previously was, right? Over the past tail end of last year and even a bit early in January, right? We were in the $80 range. We just not have been close to that. Really need some good earnings out of PayPal. They're still a way away, but just letting you guys know what I'm looking out for. And lastly, I just want to do a bit of AMD. AMD doing a pretty good job here. Bulls doing a good job of playing defense, setting themselves up for the potential daily higher low move, right? So going to be very interesting to see if they can actually do it. We're protecting our lows pretty much, which is almost a double bottom, save for a few pennies, right? But the pattern is still intact. We want to regain these moving averages and set a new daily uptrend on AMD. AMD was a very good position that I was able to get into as well today. And right, so AMD, my target area was down here, was able to write, I only was able to write pretty much the 107s when we were in this area here. I did do the 103s, a couple contracts of the 103s, but it didn't stay down there for too long before starting to make this move back up into the 115s, right? So AMD doing a very, very good job. What have we been looking for? We've just pretty much been looking for the weekly higher low to be set and the continuation of a larger weekly bull move to the upside. So AMD bulls pretty much in full control here of the larger time frames, right? Now, just need to take this one day at a time. But guys, if we do somehow dip below down here, this is my target area for AMD. I think that we'll get some pretty good gains. So now let's look into the plays. So as you can see in the account, guys, we are doing still pretty well, 57% year to date, even though the NASDAQ is currently dropping off here from its gains, 31% for the NASDAQ, still outperforming the SPY, right? Almost a 4-to-1 basis at this point, right? 14 to 56. So we are really doing a good job here of outperforming the markets. This year as a whole, we've been outperforming them pretty much the entire time. Now, as for the current plays, what I wanted to show you guys here a little bit is I wrote these options today, so keep these in mind here. The AMD's 107s were really juicy in the morning. As you can see, we're already up around 60% on that. Only a few contracts, guys, because it is a big week, CPI, and I didn't trust the move on the morning, so I didn't want to go too heavy in case we did get further pullback. And tomorrow, I would have gone heavier at potential lower strikes, right? But these were kind of just contracts that I wanted to put out there at decent levels that I find provide decent support levels here and that could provide some decent returns on the short term. So Amazon as well, wrote some Amazons, right? The 123s here for about $47 each contract, only have one contract. This end phase position is obviously a rolled covered call. If this closes above 162.5, which it should, end phase all the way up to 176 now, very decent job. We are going to pocket around $210 on this position for this week. So that will be another good covered call in the bag. The Nikes that obviously I was assigned previously, 105.70, wrote the 107 calls on Friday here just because I didn't want to lose any more value on it. So tried to capture the theta over the weekend, but we opened higher today. So that was a gamble. Still okay with it. Wrote a bit under my strike here because I do still have some long-term Nike shares in the other account. So I'm okay. And will Nike close above 107? It remains to be seen this week. I would not mind rolling the calls if ever they do go over 107. Eventually, we will be positive premium. This is kind of a neutral position for me at this point. Could have waited a bit longer, guys, but didn't really like the position, right? I'd been writing Nike 103s, 104 previously. 107 wasn't my ideal level, but I was okay with it. I do still have some long-term shares. Wouldn't be mad if I do get called away on this position. With the premium received, pretty much, we would pretty much be break even when I wrote these contracts to anything. So if all else, it would be a break even position. I'll roll them for a potential premium profit. The PayPal's obviously was able to write the 71s today with the up move up here on my 100 shares that I was assigned in this account roughly around a month ago at this point, potentially even like 5 weeks. So they've finally come around. I've been writing some decent premium on PayPal covered calls for the last 3 weeks pretty much. So we've really been able to lower our cost basis a little bit. It doesn't reflect in this average cost because they were covered calls. However, I would say my true average cost, we're now above it. I'm probably in the 69, maybe even mid 68 levels for my average cost on PayPal. So position is currently profitable, just looking to get called away for it, right? Teslas, I did okay on the Teslas today, kind of jumped the gun. I wrote it when they were around 267. They proceeded to drop to 265, and this contract did pop all the way to $2. So I did not catch the top of the contract, but it was still pretty much within my risk parameters. It was paying almost 0.5% from the strike, 257s for Friday, right? So remains to be seen if Tesla will hold that level. If I get assigned Tesla shares, I really won't mind at all. I have a pretty low cost basis on my Tesla shares, on my long-term Tesla shares. So this would be a good position. And then, like I said, if we continue to drop, into the 230 range, I will obviously be averaging down into the position with more contracts. But decent amount of premium for a Monday on the table currently. Not that much, like I said. I'll be writing potentially more of it tomorrow, potentially if we get some larger drops. I just really didn't like how the market was kind of like all positioned in one direction today. It was mostly big tech that was dropping and the rest of the market wasn't. So if tomorrow we get a red broad market day and big tech continues to drop, I think there will be better deals on the table. So that's why I didn't write too heavy yet. But all in all, some decent little premium here to start us off on a Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday will be my next days looking for large premium. Tomorrow, and especially Wednesday for CPI, we should be able to hit our $1,000 minimum this week as well with those 2 days. Keep that in mind. So without further ado, guys, I will wrap up the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Consider liking, consider subscribing. I really appreciate you guys for doing so. You're the best. I wish you happy trading. Tomorrow, I will see you guys after the market close. I love you guys. Always be confident, right? Always do your analysis properly, and you will do really, really well. If you have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. Peace, guys.